that kind of concludes everything that ended up happening deal-wise. And then going forward, you decided that you wanted to start preparing to go independent. Kind of what was the story there?
Yeah, so in 2008, I knew that I just had no communication from the label. And I knew at that point that they were probably moving towards letting me go. And I had been talking to the label owner because we still had a good relationship. Like, it wasn't like we had a bad relationship. It was just shit that was above our control coming from the distributor. So at that point, I had tapped you, and I was like, look, I need to figure out my next moves as soon as I get out this deal, because kind of the final straw was them just releasing the Legion of Doom shit. And then also, I fucked up. Like, I was talking with the label about doing a launch party for the Unintended Consequences / the Pathology movie, and then I went to jail.
That's right. Yeah.
I went to jail for a month fighting the case, and I got out about 30 days later, and the movie was out. And at that point, I already kind of felt some kind of way about the label, and then at that point, they definitely felt some kind of way about me because I had been pushing them to do this, and then I kind of just went fucking silent. So they felt some kind of way. So I knew that we were going to eventually move towards separation. It was just a matter of time. So I had tapped you at that point, and I was like, look, we need to figure out, like, we need to get this new album started, and we need to get a new mixtape started, and we need to start getting this shit going. And then that's how Celebration and God's Plan 2 started to come to fruition.
That's right. That was right around the time I was recording Faceless's album, Heir to the Throne. And you had a feature on there.
Yeah.
And I had a spot over in Silver Lake. And right around the time that we were finishing up Mike's album, I remember that we did a show at the Blue Cafe in Long Beach.
Yeah.
So Faceless was on the bill. E from the Lost was there because he was featured on a couple records. And then you and the Foot Soldiers, we booked it so that way you guys had a performance there as well.
Right, correct.
And then when we finished the show, I remember Willie B was there in the audience from TDE. So he does a lot of production for Schoolboy Q and Kendrick and everybody now.
Yeah.
And at the time, I remember him walking over to you, and he was like, yo, you're fucking nice. I got some beats. Let's go and check them out.
Yeah.
So we went ahead and listened to the beats in his car and shit. And then we exchanged
he had
information.
some slappers, too.
Yeah, he had some joints.
Yeah.
So right around that time, as soon as we got finished, I remember I walked up to you and I was like, yo, I got this spot in Silver Lake. We can record. We can make this a thing.
Yeah.
So I was working 9 to 5s, but I had free range and keys to the studio on Sunday. So I was like, this is a dope spot. It's running a Pro Tools TDM HD system. We can record in 88 too and really make it a thing. And they had a Blue Lawson mic over there. I'll never forget it. And that was kind of the beginning stages of when we did this because I was just in the middle of finishing up Faceless's project.
Yeah. And so we would take time and we'd start working on God's Plan, and we started working on Celebration. And Willie B was a huge part of that project. I think he produced Creep, Celebration, Perfect Woman, and I Am Legend on that album.
That's
you know
right.
what I'm saying? And Willie B was definitely in his early stages. So was I, as far as, creating my own thing and really standing on Uno Entertainment. Prior to this, Uno Entertainment was just something that I kind of threw out on records. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, I had a roster, but at this point, my roster had kind of diminished because I was gone a lot and I wasn't able to support them in a way that they probably needed to be supported. And so when I finally got back and stopped touring, it was really just about getting my footing back. And so that's when we started Celebration, and Willie B was a huge part of that.
That's right. So I remember towards the end of that, this was right around the time Faceless had done some production for Copyright. I remember we were in touch with him, and he sent him over some beats, and the Copy hit him back and was like, yo, I'm going to be using this joint because he was re-releasing his High Exalted album. This is the first album that he put out on Eastern Conference. That was the label at the time. They had a group called Eastern Conference All Stars. He was a part of. Cage was on there, and a bunch of Megahertz and that whole squad. So Faceless produced a record that ended up landing on the re-release of the High Exalted that featured a dude named Catalyst, who had a really deep voice, kind of sounded like Dr. Dre, and the song was fucking fire. So at the time, I remember Copy had hit me or he actually hit Mike, and he was like, "Yo, I'm looking for a spot to record." So Face told me about it, and I was like, "Yeah, bring him through." So he was at the time working on a project with Planet Asia, and so we invited him through. And then at the time we were working on Celebration, we were pretty much at the tail end of it, and you had the I Am Legend beat that Willie B produced, and you were talking about doing like a posse cut remix of it that had copyright Planet Asia, KRS, and Chino XL on it. So they came through, heard the record, they're like, "Fuck it, like I'll get on this shit." They penned it immediately. I'll never forget that shit. We ended up recording it, and then some time went by. My brother-in-law ended up letting me know that the hard drive that was at that studio crashed, and there was no cloud services at the time. So there's a broken hard drive somewhere with an unreleased copyright Planet Asia verse. And Triune on it.
And after that happened, I kind of killed the idea, because if you remember around that time, we had drove all the way out to Ventura to go meet up with KRS because he had a show.
That's right.
And Chino XL was on that show. And that was the night that I got confirmation, at least verbally, from both of them that they were willing to do the record.
Yeah.
So I was like, I told both of them, I was like, let me get the copyright and Planet Asia part of it done. I'll send it to you kind of mixed with me and them on it, and then you could just drop your verses in the open spots. But once the hard drive crashed, it was kind of like, all right, we just gonna pick up the pieces of what we got and we just gonna put this thing out. And so, yeah, man, the album was, I mean, to be real with you, I love the album. But there's a lot of things that I wish that I could correct on it. And there's a lot of things that I wish I could have perfected on that project. And then also the rollout was just crazy. Like, you was there for the album release party day, and it was just a lot, man, that was just going on around that album. And I just never felt like it got I never felt like I gave it the attention that it should have been getting, that it should have gotten. And so that's one that I've always kind of wanted back. But I am happy for the things that did come off of it, like Perfect Woman and Creep and Celebration and I Am Legend and shit like that. Like, that definitely helped. I have a few people in this world that love I'm Leaving. It's like their favorite fucking song. Yeah.
Oh, so as soon as we finished that was right around the time that we did God's Plan 2. Now
We're doing that simultaneously.
Yeah, we were doing it simultaneously. So we had a few beats that Willie B had also given for you for that.
Right.
One of which he ended up giving to another artist a couple years later.
Schoolboy Q.
Yeah, fuck it. Schoolboy Q ended up putting out a mixtape called Setbacks like 2 years later, and there's a record on there called Kamikaze with the instrumental with like the loud horns and shit. And that was a record he initially gave to you exclusively and said, "I made this specifically for you."
Yeah.
And 2 years later, I remember I was at my boy's house and they had Pandora on. And I was hanging out in his backyard and the shit came on and I figured they just had your mixtape.
Right.
And then sure enough, I hear this other dude rapping on it and I'm like, "Who in the fuck is this?"
Right.
And he was like, "Oh, this is Schoolboy Q. He's dope. He's new." And I was like, "What fucking song is this?" They're like, "Oh, this is Kamikaze." I ended up doing some Googling and shit and lost my shit. Like, are you fucking serious?
Yeah, man, that's been a theme in my career. You know what I'm saying? Like, certain things just being, I don't even want to say so much taken, but just people having similar ideas of mine at that given time, and they always end up being a little bit after mine. And I will be clear about this too. Like, I do understand, like, artists plan. So I don't know when these ideas were in the planning phase. I just know when they were released. And so that kind of led to that freestyle that I did in 2014, where I was extremely fucking just frustrated at it seeming that every fucking idea I had was being snagged by some major artist and getting a major pull or major push behind it. And so I think on that album, like, I had went after like Common and Eminem and Schoolboy and like a bunch of people.
Well, I mean, you can give examples as to, I mean, fuck it.
Yeah, so like the Schoolboy shit, I released a single called Fresh in 2012 that the cover was like a boombox with the Fresh over it. Eminem released another record that was it was eerily similar with the Beastie Boys sample, and the cover was like a boombox with the thing.
Yeah, it was like identical.
Yeah, I think Common and Game had released like celebration songs like within like a year or so of me releasing like my album Celebration with the lead single Celebration, and I am aware that one of these artists absolutely heard my version of it. I won't say what name, who, but one of them did. And Yeah, it was just a lot of things that were just happening. It was like, yo, can I have an idea?
It stops being coincidental eventually. It starts feeling intentional.
Well, yeah, and the Heart of That freestyle I put out, like, it's still in existence. You guys can go on my SoundCloud and check it out. I mean, I'm not super proud of that today just because it definitely doesn't have like, you know, my mature approach to it. You know, it's very much the old me. And I guess that's why I kind of let it live. I think the rapping on there is really good, but I can't say that I can 100%, you know, stand on these artists stole my shit. I think lightning struck twice.
Got a clique full of shooters. They won't